And you've talked about how Instagram is not, it's like a business. It's not just for fun.
Yeah, well, if you want to be an influencer and if you want to do this for a living, then you have to find proper ways to monetize. I mean, we get offered so many things for free, like in exchange or promote like in exchange for promotion or like a discount on something or that kind of thing, and those are great perks, but they don't pay the bills. There's also a balance between, is it something I want versus like, is it something that you're asking me to do and I could really live without this? But so you're kind of like balancing everything all the time and seeing if it's worth your time.
And I wanted to ask you what your definition of the word influencer is, because I feel like there's like a negative stigma around the word.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it.
I just use it because it's like the most widely accepted
It's an
term.
industry term. Yeah. And so I know I always tell people that too. Like, actually, when I hear the word influencer, I feel like someone's holding like a pendulum and it's like, I'm hypnotizing you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the word influencer, like I tell people, if you're looking at it through like an SEO lens, well, that's the word that people know. That's the word that people use. I often use the example of like coach. So some people don't like the word coach, like I'm a lifestyle coach or that kind of thing. And it's, again, industry term. So, what can you do until we change it? I know people are using the word content creator, which is fine. I just find the content creator doesn't carry the influence piece where people are looking at you for something, that authority. I find it's missing in the word content creator. So
no, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, because like anybody can be a content creator, but not anybody can influence the opinion of other people.
Yeah, or like sway someone to make a purchase or do that action. Like that's what I find is missing.
Yeah. And do you remember the first time you ever got paid to make a post on your Instagram?
I've been asked this question and I can't remember. I feel like it was maybe $30 or $50, but I wish I remembered. I need to go back in my stuff. That's a humbling experience.
So do you have any advice for people that are just getting into the influencing game and like how they should go about landing their first brand deal?
I think the first thing is you need to figure out like who you are, what you do, what your message is, what your niche is, and not really focus on like, I want to be an influencer when I grow up. That's a hard goal to achieve, like it's like, what are you trying to do? The outcome is that you might influence people when you're doing something, when you're good at something, when you have lots of information to share, when you're teaching, when you're giving value. But it's like, it's like, I want to be popular, I want to get an Oscar, but it's like, what do you want to do to get the Oscar? That's the outcome. So I would say, and I know that a lot of young people are going to want to do this as a career, and that's great, but it's like, learn a topic, become an expert, share your expertise, and then by default, you'll be like an expert in that field, and then you can influence people and their decisions on that.
Sorry, you were going to say something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes I'm like, I have to remind myself, I'm like, what am I doing? What is this? And again, it's like, remember your why. So for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here because I like to share my styling advice, and I have a lovely group of like curvy women that I'm representing, especially in the city. And I'm like, all right, this is what I'm doing. Okay, got to bring fashion back in,
Yeah.
Or like, I love beauty and I like to do everyday makeup looks. So, bring it back. I live in Ottawa and I want to feature all the cool stuff in Ottawa. So like, bring it back. And that will always get you to that destination that you're going.
Yeah. And then do you use your why to kind of help you decide what companies you're going to partner with and do collaborations with, so that like it's consistent with your why, so it's not random content that you're putting out?
I mean, that's a great question. I should do that. I'm not that deep. But I don't know if you read my blog post about the future predictions, and a lot of it was like my plea to brands to actually accept or just to consider those asks from influencers that want to work with you, because that why is already answered. So for me, it's going to be easier to work with someone that I already believe in, or something that I already buy, something that I already use. But when I'm being asked to put something into my life, and if there's a weird like hesitation, I'm like, well, I don't use this, or I wouldn't wear this, or I can try to make it cool, but that's not really authentic. Like I can make it look cool, but do I want someone to go buy that, right? And so there's a lot of these questions that I'm asking myself. So if brands would just like kind of accept, it makes the thing so much easier, right? Like you naturally give the people what they're looking for, and then you're using it a lot more. It's always in your feed, so it's like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And so when a company comes to you, like, what's your process for accepting them and then for implementing it into your feed easily and like without, like, I don't want to say organically because it's not organic content, but implementing it into your feed? So
the first thing I always make sure is that you can buy it in Canada, because there's no point in me posting something if you can't even buy it in Canada. If it's Canadian product, that's even better. And then of course, if it's like a plus size line, or if it's a line that comes in extra large, that sort of thing, that's where the XL comes in with Mud Exclusive. So those are like a little bit of the factors or the criteria. And then of course, like, it's like, will I wear this, or is it my style? Like, I mean, that's kind of like a no-brainer, but I had one ask, it's happening now, so I won't mention the brand, but I'm like, this is pushing it. Like, I'm like, I can make this work, but at the end of the day, if someone was like, oh, do you shop here? I'd be like, hell no. So I'm like, I won't take this one.
Mm-hmm. And then, so when it comes to sponsored content, do you ever do it for exchange of posts, or do you always make sure you're charging money in exchange for the work you're doing?
So I like to look at them as assignments. And so sometimes PR companies will send you product, and it's like, it's fair game whether you post or not. If you post, then good for them. They got free exposure kind of thing. But then when it's like an ask and an assignment, and they're like, here's something we want you to post, bing, bing, bing. Then I'm like, okay, you're opening the door for me to like, to offer either like my media kit, or to ask, what is this campaign? Do you have budget? And then I like to kind of create a little custom package based on their budget, based on, like I was saying before, how badly do I want this product? There's so many different factors that kind of encompass it all. And it's also, I mean, I have a rate card, but are these prices that small businesses can afford, or, local brands versus like big brands, that sort of thing. So there's so many different factors to consider.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your media kit, and I think that's really important. I've noticed that as like a trend among like the successful people on social media. So what do you have in your media kit?
So I have like an about me. I have about my blog. I've got stats on each of my channels. I have like demographics. I just added a new section, which is like things that perform well. So my stories perform well, my good makeup mornings. So it's like I'm showcasing to the brand, like, if you want to hire or if you want to buy advertising, these are the things that do really well. Like, consider these things.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I'm assuming you've worked with a ton of brands now over like your 5-6 year blogging career. So from your experience, what are some things that make a positive brand experience, and what are some things that make it a negative one?
So when there's too much control from the brand, like, some direction is great, but when there's too much control, when there's like, they're reviewing the content, reviewing stories, I understand that I use disclaimers on everything. I'm always open with that sort of thing. And usually brands should be smart enough to say, like, make sure that you're disclosing that this is whatever, use #ad, or, make that disclosure clear. So never work with a brand that's like, don't use this disclosure. That's always bad. What else? Yeah, creative freedom is a huge one. Some long-term partnerships actually make our lives easier, whether it's like creating the content ahead of time, or like batch creating stuff, or things that you can sprinkle like every month. So it's easier to, I don't want to say sell the product, but to feature it. Like, if you're that repetition helps. I don't like campaigns that are tied to like you'll get a commission, because I'm like, well, I'm just doing promotion. I can't be held responsible for sales. Sales is a bonus. And yes, some influencers can sell out a product, but that's because they're an authority in that field. Of course, they're going to sell out, but I can still have a lot of reach and promote items or whatever, promote stuff without necessarily like selling something out. So being held accountable for sales is always a toughie.
Yeah.